Hey guys, welcome to my video about how you can improve a lot in Season 5. Fortnite has changed a lot over the past few months, and maybe you are struggling to keep up with the new updates, but the basic tips remain the same throughout each season. To start this off, let's look at the meta. It's more of a single shotgun, an SMG, close range fighting. Close range fights occur at the most important time in the game, which is the beginning. That leads us to, if you're struggling at the beginning of the game in close range fights, the best thing you can possibly do is practice building more in those fights. One of the main reasons dying in close range fights is because players aren't building enough during closer range fights, because the fact you could be dodging bullets by simply building and protecting yourself while getting shots off on your enemy. Now, I know you're probably thinking, how do I build with little to no materials at the beginning of the game? What I recommend is to farm up 150 to 250 materials before entering a fight in a populated landing area. As well, if players land with you at your location, the best thing you can do is land on a weapon, scout out the enemies. Most of these situations, when you're first landing, you won't be able to build, and it really comes to knowing your surroundings and hitting shots on your enemies. Now, that brings us into one of the most important parts of the game, and that's hitting your shotgun shots. Hitting your shotgun shots is so important. Just look how much damage they can do and how much damage you can take by simply missing a shot. Hitting your shotgun shots will not only, in most situations, decrease your chance of taking more damage, but it'll obviously damage and kill your enemy. If you take a good look at console Fortnite players, Nick Mercs for example, they are incredibly accurate. Most of them aren't too impressive at building, but what makes them such a respectably good player is that they have incredibly good gun skill. And that's very important in Fortnite. Due to a good 7 out of 10 fights, it's going to come down to gun skill. And when I say 7 out of 10 fights coming down to gun skill, yes, I mean building is involved, and yes, you have to be a decent to good builder, but it's also not the most important thing in the game. And if you do struggle against people overbuilding you, what I do recommend is look at other alternatives to stopping them getting the high ground. There's plenty of ways to regain high ground in Fortnite, such as putting pyramids over their heads, maybe even double ramping up. There's also just a bunch of different strategies other than raising your sensitivity and just spinning around building, because that simply does not make you a good player, and most of the time you will miss the majority of the shots you take. Now, when I see these tips, there's room for improvement for everybody, and I think the room for improvement is on yourself and whether you're willing to try new things. Maybe one thing's working for you, but maybe one thing will work better. The next tip I have for you is positioning. Positioning is very important, especially when approaching the team you see. If they don't see you and you see them, I think before you start firing your shots, you should try to get a better position on them. Maybe there's a nearby hill. It'll grant you huge high ground and huge advantages on the other team, simply because it's kind of hard to push a high ground. If you're struggling winning out the game in like a top 10 situation or less, I think what you need to work on is positioning. If you're able to survive at the beginning of a game at a populated area, most likely if you cannot win out the game and it's towards the end of the game, you need to really work on finding and scouting high ground, maybe seeing your enemies before they see you, and kind of knowing where everyone is on the map so you don't get pinched. And that's really what big YouTubers, streamers, etc. are really referring to when they say IQ or game sense. Now let's talk how you can actually improve in-game while playing. There's a big diversity in where you can land in Fortnite. You know, there's throughout the whole entire map is tons of marked locations, big cities, populated cities, and unpopulated cities. One of the most important things that I think you can use to improve is find a decent populated area or populated area, find one building, and master landing there and surviving, and trying to be the last one alive there. Now this will really help the players that are struggling surviving in populated areas simply just at the beginning of the game. Now, if you're struggling towards the middle of the game or really any part of the game, what I recommend is if you're running an open fielded area, you can jump, strafe, and really just make it so you're not running straight, because if you're running straight, it's going to make you a really easy target to look sniped and make you look like not so good of a player. By doing this as well, it won't make you as easily targeted, due to the fact they really can't get initial few shots off compared to if you were running straight forward. Which I find, if they can get a few shots off in the beginning of the fight, that really can make a big difference. For example, if they're 100 100 and you're 100 100, but they can get you to 130 and they're still 100 100, you're down 70 health. And by simply just straight running forward, you gave them an instant fighting advantage on you. As well, when doing this, I think it's very important if you kind of spot and know your surroundings. Look for enemies and look where they're located, and try to remember that before you rush into any fight. Due to you can easily get pinched by multiple people or multiple teams, which can lead you in a bad situation. Trust me, it's very frustrating and annoying when you're getting pushed by multiple teams, but I promise you, you can easily avoid it if you just take a look around and try to find where everybody is before you rush into a fight. As well, being a good player, you should be able to fight off pinches in most situations, which you might want to get pinched to be able to practice that. Maybe you can even practice it in playground mode. Practice it in playground mode, you should have one friend and you fight each other. Middle to the end of the fight, have another player push into the fight and try to fight them off. Now this will help you a lot in them situations where you get pushed and you have very low health right after getting out of a fight. But to practice this the most efficient way is go into public matches and put yourself in every single gunfight situation, because if you're going to become a top tier or good Fortnite player, you're going to be able to need to fight off in every single situation and still come on top. Top of all of these, one of the most efficient ways you can improve is watching your own gameplay. Watching your own gameplay will allow you to see the things that you didn't really notice in the fight, which you should have. And this will really fix the mistakes that you keep on repeating over and over again without realizing. And there's probably a lot of them, trust me, I know. And if there isn't a lot of them, there are probably bigger mistakes if it keeps on happening over and over again. And if you can't personally see any mistakes that you're making in a gunfight, have a friend rewatch it, or have a better player than you rewatch it and try to let you know. I made a whole entire other video on how to improve your aim and stop the SMG spam meta if you're struggling against it. I'll link it in the description below. Thank you guys for watching this video, and please make sure to let me know if these tips really helped you improve your gameplay. Sorry if I sounded tired or my voice is really raspy. I was recording this at 1 AM, and make sure you subscribe and comment something you want me to make my next video on.